All right, hi, we're back. Today we're switching it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about linear functions still, those functions that make lines when you graph them. But we're going to talk about slope. And I'm pretty sure you guys talked about slope last year, so hopefully this brings back some memories. If not, we're going to go slow so you can still learn it. So, slope, when you think of it, I think of like a ski slope, or what's the slope of that hill, right? It's like how fast is that? How fast is that hill rising, or how fast is that hill dropping? So I always think of a person. So if this is our linear function, which it kind of looks like that line we graphed for Mr. Patel's jump ropes, this line is going up, right? So if the slope, if this guy is walking up this hill, oh, if you're walking up that hill, it's going to be really tiring, right? You're going to get exhausted because the more you go, that's a lot of energy. This slope, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. This slope is going up. So this is what we call a positive slope. It's going up, it's positive. That's kind of easy to remember, right? Then the opposite is true. What if you're going on a trek and you're going downhill? When you're coming downhill, it's going to be a lot easier, right? So this is called a negative slope. So the way you always have to think about it is you just look at the start of the line and you're like, is this line, if I'm starting on the left-hand side, is this line going up? Yes, and it's a positive slope. If I'm starting on the left-hand side and that line's going down, that's a negative slope. So if these pictures help you, you should write those down because it'll help, because you're going to have to decide if slopes are positive and negatives. So let's just do one real quick. What if, let's say this is the line. If that is the linear function you've just graphed and plotted, that is going to be a positive slope because it's going up, right? If you had to start walking up that line, you'd be tired. Positive slope, okay? So just keep that in mind. So we're going to start with looking at some graphs here. So here's my first example, right? Now I'm looking at this. If I was a little guy starting down here, walking on this line, I'm going up, going uphill. So I know that this is a positive slope. It's going up. So I'm just going to write that so I can remember, okay? And now we need to figure out how steep is that. So it's you need to remember that slope is just asking you how steep. How steep is that line? Okay? And the way you do that is you have to figure out how much is changing. So this is another important thing, that in math, instead of writing the word slope all the time, in algebra and starting in high school and now in 8th grade, we just abbreviate slope as M. It's just a letter we use for it. So if you're ever finding slope, you just have to find the change in y over the change in x, which the easy way to remember it is rise over run. So this is something you want to write in your notebook. The change in y, because this is the y-axis, right? So that's your rise, your up and down. And change in x, your run, is your left and right. So what you need to do, if you have to figure out the slope of this line, we know it's positive, something that positive number. You pick 2 points that are easy to use. So like I'm going to pick this point because it's right there on that intersection. And then I'm going to pick, I don't know, this point looks like it's on the intersection. So first thing we do is figure out what the rise is. So to get from here to here, use a different color here. I have to rise or go up to this line. So what is that change in y? What did I rise? I rose 1, 2 spots. So my rise here for this example is 2 over, because it's a fraction, over my run. How many do I have to run to get to this spot? Well, I have to run all the way over here. So I have to run 1, 2, 3 spaces. So the slope of this line is 2 over 3, and it's positive 2 over 3. That is telling me it's going up. It's positive 2 over 3, but you don't need to write the plus, because remember, if there's no negative sign there, it's assumed positive. Okay, maybe a little tricky. Let's keep practicing and see if we can get it. So I'm going to keep this one over here so we can remember. Let's get my notebook over. So we can remember this equation, rise over run. So again, this one, looking at the line. If I were a guy on this line If we're going down, it'd be pretty easy. So I know this is a negative slope because it's going down. So I'm just going to write negative there so I can remember. Find 2 points that are on the intersection. So this one and this one. We're going to choose those two because they cross right there at the intersection. So now, the top number in my fraction is the rise. How much do I have to go up or down? So I need to, for this one, I have to go down. You can't see that because it's right over the axis, but I have to go down 2 spots, which is why that slope is negative, because down 2 spots means negative, right? So I'm going to write here, m equals, that's my slope, m equals -2 over. What's my run? How many do I have to move to the left? I only have to move 1 to the, sorry, I said the wrong way, 1 to the right. So -2 over 1. So my slope here, let's erase this from this one. I'm just going to write it over here so we know now that it's 2/3. So my slope here is -2 over 1. Now you remember fractions? It's completely right to say my slope is -2 over 1, but that's the same as saying my slope is -2. So I'm just going to compare these really quickly. This slope is +2/3. Let me cover these two so we don't get confused. This slope is +2/3, so it's going up, and this one's going down. But if I had to ask you which one had a steeper slope, hopefully you can see that this one's going down much faster than this one's going up. And that's true by the numbers. 2, if we look at just the number 2, take the negative off for a second. 2 is a much bigger number than 2/3. That's why it's decreasing so much faster, right? Than this 2/3. So this slope helps you figure that out, okay? Let's keep trying a couple more. I'm going to cover this for a second. Keep this here because we need it. Okay, step 1, negative slope. I know it's going down. I'm just going to hold that in my brain. Okay, let's find 2 points on the intersection. I see this one and I see this one. Slope is rise over run, which doesn't always mean rise. It could mean fall, right? Because this one is going down, so I know it's negative. So my slope here is slope, m equals. How many do I have to go down? I have to go down 1, 2, 3 spaces. So I'm going to put that negative because that's a negative slope. So -3 spaces down. Over my run. How many do I have to run? Oh, I only have to hop over 1 space. This is the same as above. So this is the correct answer. My slope is -3 over 1. But remember, you can simplify that just to -3. All right, this one. Oh my goodness, this one looks a little different because it's a flat line. So let's try this. I'm just going to write rise over run here. Rise. So I'm going to pick 2 points on the intersection. I could pick this point and this point. It doesn't matter. How many do I have to rise or fall up or down to go from this point to this point? I don't. It's completely flat. There is no rise or run. I'm sorry, there is no rise. So it doesn't jump up or down. But my run, my x, I have to jump over 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. But guess what? That doesn't matter because 0 over 4 is the same as 0. This line has no slope. It's not steep. There's no steepness, so you can't describe the steepness of a flat line. The slope of a flat line is 0 because it's not steep at all. So that's just something you want to remember, is that if it's a flat line, the slope is 0. So I know that may be a little tricky, but we're going to practice more today on finding slopes of lines, and you'll see how we're doing with it, okay? It's all right if you don't get it today. We're going to keep practicing. You just want to make sure that you write this down, because this is what you're going to need today's classwork. Slope means how steep, and you have to remember rise over run, and you have to remember when is it positive or when is it negative, okay? So write this down somewhere, take a snapshot, save it, because this we're going to use for classwork for the today and the next couple of days as well, okay?